Wonderful. Thanks for having me this afternoon, and it's nice to see so many of you in here this afternoon interested in public speaking. My name's Imogen, and I'm a Toastmaster, and I have been a Toastmaster for 8 years now. And I'm currently a Toastmaster out at Highfields Club, but there are other Toastmasters groups in Toowoomba, as I will talk a bit about later on in the session. So you're all here interested in one specific thing, improving your communication, correct? So how many of you follow somebody on social media like Steve Jobs or Naomi Simpson, or somebody who inspires you? You guys follow those sorts of people? Somebody who might be in a similar line of business to you? No? I encourage you to get online and have a look at somebody who might actually inspire you in either your business or in some sort of skills that you might be interested in improving. Because these people all have one thing in common. They are excellent communicators. And great communication isn't just about being able to stand up and speak in front of a crowd. Great communication is about having that message that you want to deliver in a concise manner, as well as having confidence in front of not just your audience, but your customers and your suppliers. And it's also about being a good listener. So today I wanted to make it a little bit interactive to help you guys get a bit more involved and hopefully become a little bit more comfortable with speaking in front of people. I mean, that's why we're here. But first of all, we might go through what Toastmasters is about, and then we'll have a look at how that might be relevant to your business and how those skills will become useful for you in your line of work. So has anybody seen Toastmasters before, been to Toastmasters, or been a guest?
Heard of it,
yes.
I know of it. I know it's about improving your skills in public speaking.
Yep.
However, I have not attended one myself.
So basically you're all fresh meat.
I can imagine at Toastmasters where you have champagne with a lot of toasts.
Well, that's how it all originated. Basically, a man in the US decided that there was a significant lack of skills amongst people in his network, and sort of saw an opportunity for an education program, basically to help these young men. Is how it started in developing their skills to be confident in front of an audience. So that's sort of where it all started, and a lot of people do come to Toastmasters looking to improve those toasting skills, because you might have a daughter's wedding coming up, or a presentation to give at work, or potentially receiving an award at an awards evening, and all of those things basically have that fundamental public speaking skills underneath them. So we do have people sign up just for that particular reason, but Toastmasters is a lot more than just public speaking, and that's where your communication development comes into it. But I think there's also a lot to be learned from Toastmasters in terms of leadership development as well. Basically, the program is based on improving public speaking skills within a supportive and structured environment. So we have a program that starts you out on a path to sort of help you develop a particular skill, or learning to just get up in front of people. And then as you get further along that path, you get more experienced at what you're doing, and more skills come on board with what you might be able to learn. So a typical meeting, so we meet twice a month usually, most Toastmasters meetings do. There is the odd lunchtime Toastmasters Club if evenings don't suit you. And basically, we start off with a little bit of a warm-up, and when we get through this a bit more, maybe we'll have a little bit of a warm-up here and see how you will go. But that's just a chance for everyone in the meeting to go around the room and warm up their vocal cords, basically. And it's a very quick 30-second sort of start, and it can be as simple as, how's your week been, or what was the best holiday that you had? And a quick 30 seconds on a very simple topic helps you get ready for the rest of the meeting. Then we delve into something a little bit more complicated, and usually end up with something like what we call a table topic. The table topic's a little bit more challenging. It's about improving your impromptu skills. So for those of you who, might think that you're good on the phone or good speakers, sometimes improving your impromptu skills is nearly more beneficial than learning how to do the longer speeches. Mainly because impromptu speaking, the skills that you learn in that, in developing that type of specific speech is really valuable in those quick business things that you might need to do. So instead of spending 20 minutes on the phone trying to explain to a customer your point that you're not quite sure how to articulate, learning an impromptu speaking skill might help with that so that you can reduce that 20-minute time frame down to 1 to 2 minutes and still be able to get your point across that you're trying to make. And your customers will thank you for it because time is money. So the table topic is a little bit more challenging because you get given a topic, up you come, 1 to 2 minutes, off you go. And
You have no time to prepare for that.
That's right.
Topic later.
That's right. But that's life, isn't it? How many times you get put on the spot? Tell me about your business. I don't have very long to listen to you, so I want you to tell me in 1 to 2 minutes about your business. Or a customer rings you and has a really challenging question, and you might think you know the answer, but you get put on the spot. So it's all about stretching those skills that help you think quickly on your feet. So the table topic might be something simple like, tell us about your most challenging client. Or it might be a little bit more challenging, like the sky is blue, tell us why. Or it might be, we try to avoid politics and all that sort of thing in Toastmasters, so it's usually nothing too strenuous, but we do get the odd one. If you're Prime Minister for a day, what would you do? That type of thing. Hello and welcome. Is that our visitor online? So those are the sorts of things that can help you develop that 1 to 2 minute speaking table topic skills. And that's about the main point of developing those skills is so that you can construct a mini speech for 1 to 2 minutes that actually has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm hoping that maybe some of you might be brave enough to get up and have a crack at that a bit later on in the session. So, don't worry, we'll make it very simple. But basically, those skills are just as important as learning the skills that you do for a longer speech. So that's sort of the start of the meeting. We'll have a couple of what we call a full speech, I guess you could say, and they are 7 to 10 minutes long and a little bit more detailed. And you can pick any topic you like. That's the beauty of Toastmasters. Once you've picked your path and you sort of set on that path in that sort of structured environment, it is completely self-paced. You go as fast or as slow as you want, and you pick the topics that are relevant to you. So the speeches are guided in a sense that maybe you have a particular focus in a particular speech. For example, your first speech is called an icebreaker, and basically that's what it sounds like. Just getting you used to being in front of an audience and telling us about yourselves, and that really is just the first step along that pathway. Then as you get more developed in your speaking skills and learn a little bit more, things get a little bit more challenging, and you might have a project that you've got at work or that you might need to create on the side, and your speech then becomes about that project and how you're working on that project and what your team's doing and those sorts of things. So that they get a little bit more targeted as the further you get along the path, and that then helps you develop those skills within that sort of presentation environment. But there's one critical thing in Toastmasters that I think really develops the speaker in everybody, or the communicator in everybody, and that is evaluation. Now, everything in Toastmasters is evaluated, because how else are you going to learn or improve if you don't get feedback? And I think this is one key point that Toastmasters can help business people in particular, because learning to evaluate, learning to give feedback as well as receive feedback can really be applied to your business. Because if you've got customers or even suppliers, it really helps you learn how to listen and how to take on board feedback that you're getting, especially if it's feedback that you might find isn't necessarily something that you might agree with, but they're your customers. So you want to make sure that you're answering to them and providing the service that they want. So learning those evaluation skills can go a really, really long way towards how you apply that in your own business. And the particular thing about Toastmasters is that it's such a supportive environment for that type of feedback that it's not, it's very constructive, it's not destructive. So for example, if you have a speaker get up and for a table topics, for example, they might waffle on for 2.5, 3 minutes or 4, or they might be really nervous and clasp their hands or stand with their hands behind their backs or something like that. And you might go up to them afterwards and say, oh, look, I really, really liked your speech, but I couldn't understand what you were saying because you were mumbling, or you waffled on for too long, or you stood with your hands behind your back and I thought you didn't want to be there. Now, that's not necessarily constructive feedback, because that person then goes away and goes, okay, well, what do I do instead? So generally in Toastmasters, we like to give an example of how to improve. So for that person, you might provide the evaluation that says, I really enjoyed what you had to say, but I think you could benefit from adding some structure to your speech. For example, I'd take that middle bit and make it your introduction, and I'd move this and I'd cut this bit out of your speech so that you met the time, because that bit wasn't particularly relevant to what you were talking about. And, you know, I could tell you were a little bit nervous speaking in front of people, which is probably why you had your hands behind your back. But if you were to relax in front of the crowd, then your hands would just come down beside you, and that would engage your audience more. So there's always a point to the evaluations where you're looking for, what do I need to improve? How can I improve? And why should I improve? And that's the key, that's at the core of all evaluations within Toastmasters. And I think that particular skill is more transferable to business than actually being able to stand up in front of the crowd. Because if you can learn to listen and take on feedback that you've got and apply it to your business, or even the other way around, if you've got feedback that you need to provide to suppliers or even staff, then that gives you that skill that's able to give it in a manner where they know what they want and what they need to improve, where they need to improve, and how to do it. So that's I guess a unique thing about Toastmasters, is that we have this evaluation side of everything, and it really does improve your listening skills. So that's generally how a meeting would flow. We have a couple of other segments in there, but I would encourage you to go and have a visit to any Toastmasters Club to really see how the meeting runs and how it will flow. But those are the skills that you work on within Toastmasters to develop not just your public speaking skills, but your communication skills. So you're all here to learn, which is why we're at Much to Learn. So we might have a little bit of a warm-up, shall we say, and go around the room, and in 30 seconds, if you could tell everybody in the room a little bit about your business. And I might grab my phone and just make sure that everybody sticks to time, because that's very important in Toastmasters. It's crucial that we stick to our time frames, otherwise the meetings can end up going on forever and ever. So we might start with Paul. Will you start us off, Paul? If you want to tell us.
Should I be standing up?
Yes, so generally in a meeting we do stand as we're giving the presentation, and I'll just time you quickly.
Time quickly. 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Off you go.
I'm Paul from Entire Computer Services. We specialise in technology support for individuals, homes, and micro businesses. That can include anything which doesn't stop at computers. It could be anything from phones, internet, dealing with internet service providers, which seems to be the vein of a lot of people's technology criteria. And a majority of the work I do carry out is on computers, but it does go a lot more beyond that.
Ding ding, well done. Next.
David from Campus Code in Startup Toowoomba, and I also have a business shed blog. So what we do is we've got people that are looking to repair, rebuild, extend, or renovate their steel building, order what they need online, cut it to home or site.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Tim from Focused on Cleaning. Basically, we do carpets, tiles, lamps, that sort of stuff. But we also do a lot of insurance or damage work on irrigation, meth houses, death houses where people have been dead for those things. Yeah, that's pretty much us.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Doug, work for Civil and Environmental Consultancy, Construction Solutions. We work with local government, state government and government companies, and roads and bridge projects, working with various projects.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Aaron. I'm a director of Imogen King Lawyers. We're a very broad-based legal firm. We do basically just about every area of legal practice, from commercial property, family law, franchising, wills, estates, and myself personally, I focus on commercial law.
Ken the Fixed Man, your fast and reliable handyman in the Toowoomba region. I do all the small jobs you don't have the time, interest, or the tools to do, and travel all around the Toowoomba area and out.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating. Now, how did you feel about that? I put you on the spot a little bit, but you all came to lunch and learn to learn. So let's have a look and have a little bit of an understanding of what might actually stand out to you. What went well around the room? So if we're looking at good speakers or good communicators, what were the standout things that you thought came up? Or what were the things that terrified you? Just standing up in general?
Having an audience.
An audience?
People looking at you.
Yeah, okay. So, audience.
And no idea how long, 30 seconds.
Only one of you made it to 30 seconds, so.
Within 30 seconds.
Okay. So timing. Timing is another very important thing.
Practice.
That's right. That's right. Just with practice. Anything else that might stand out to you with that little exercise?
Knowing structure.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of you excelled, and some of you might be able to improve a little bit.
Preparedness was an issue there because we put on the
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
There was no capability to prepare. We obviously prepared something like elbow field or pitch,
Yeah.
but other than that, it was wing.
Which is all part of the program. But the whole idea of impromptu speaking is that you're not prepared. But the more you practice your impromptu speaking, the more prepared you can be because you have the tools to do that. So I asked you a very specific question about your business. So each of you knew the topic, the subject matter, so that made it easier. You were more comfortable because you've had to do that in the past, supposedly, trying to get customers or during networking events. And if those sorts of things scare you, then that's where these tools come in handy. So what else? Let's put a couple more up there and then we'll discuss them individually. What else stuck out to you during that exercise?
Hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed a lot of you were very
We didn't want to make it, I didn't want to be.
Who's one last question? Who's conscious to know what the hands were doing when I was talking?
I noticed a couple of you, were conscious,
Yeah.
especially after I had
After you
to.
talked about that.
Yep. Anything else?
Arms and arms.
Yeah, good one. Actually, I did notice,
Fairly inside.
fillers.
Fillers.
I did notice most of you didn't use fillers because it was a subject matter that you are familiar with, right? So when you are more familiar with your subject matter, you tend not to use a lot of fillers. But we'll come to each of these. So basically having an audience and having somebody look at you. But yeah, it's probably the single most terrifying thing about public speaking. There's a little quote that goes something like, there are two deaths, one at the end of your life or you die twice. The first time is when you get up to do public speaking. So everybody is absolutely terrified of public speaking. And that doesn't mean the more experience you get, the less terrified you are. People are still nervous getting up in front of an audience, but you learn to manage those nerves. You learn to get comfortable with the crowd regardless of the nerves. So I'm not here to say that terrifying moment is going to go away, but you learn to handle it a lot better. But your audience looking at you, that's how you gauge whether you've got your audience. And it doesn't matter whether it's a crowd full of 80 people or whether it's a customer one-on-one. That learning to provide eye contact to your audience helps you receive the feedback that you need. Do you have your audience's attention? Have you got their, have you engaged them? They're like wanting to hear more. What's going on inside their head? Are they totally zoned out because they're not really interested in what you've got to offer? So if you can utilize some of the skills from learning public speaking, you can engage your audience, your customer, your supplier, regardless of whether they want your product or not, because you'd be confident, you're engaging, and what you have to say will matter to them, no matter whether they're interested or not. They might know somebody who is. And if you can keep their interest for long enough, then there's a reference that you might not have had in the past. So getting comfortable in front of an audience does just come with practice. Timing. Timing is another thing that comes with practice, but timing is very vital. You think 30 seconds doesn't sound like long, right? 30 seconds doesn't sound like long at all. But Paul was the only one who actually made it to 30 seconds. Who thought he spoke for too long? Anybody?
So he was about to.
Yeah.
He would have gone on forever if he was stopping.
That's right, but 1 to 2 minutes sounds like a really long time when you're put on the spot. But the more practice you have at doing that 1 to 2 minute speech, the more comfortable you get with that particular timing and learning when it's time to cut yourself off, or learning when to give a little bit more information. You know, when we have young or I say inexperienced Toastmasters come along and get up and do their table topics for the first time, we encourage them to get to 30 seconds and be like, well done, you made it to 30 seconds, that's great. And the next time they get up, come on, let's get to a minute. And soon enough, you can't shut them up. But it's learning that skill where the timing sits. And you soon develop an understanding of how long you're asking for, or you develop an understanding of that you've managed to get all your points into your time frame that you have. So in Toastmasters, we're lucky. We generally have timing lights on the desk and we can see how far along we are. We get a green light at sort of our first milestone, and then an orange when we get to our next milestone, and then a red when it's time to actually exit stage left. So you get the tools to utilise and understand where your timing might get to. So that's something that's relevant, but not necessarily the most important. Now, speech structure. I'm glad you touched on this because it is really, really important, especially when you're giving a pitch, to understand that structure and where your key points lie and where maybe the fluff lands that you don't necessarily need. So if we were to look at all of your pitches again and understand where the structure lies, of course, first of all, you have an introduction. Hi, my name is, and I work for, or I am, my business is. So that's your introduction. The next bit comes along and it's your body. So tell me the key points about your business, but put something in there that draws my attention. Why do I want your business over somebody else's? So see how the structure then changes from fact giving to interest giving. we do such and such, for example, and provide something that you've done in the past. So Ken might give us an example of, I put doors back on, or fix window frames, or, provide an example of what your current clientele might be like, because that person might not necessarily make the link to I fix things. Okay, that's great. Tell me a little bit more about what you fix, or tell me a little bit more about what your business, what services that it provides. And yet you'll still fit that into your 30-second. And if you practice over time, you'll get an idea of where what meat should be in that body of your little speech. And then have a conclusion. So this is something that we haven't necessarily touched on yet, but conclusions are important in speeches because it rounds off what you're saying. A conclusion can be as simple as, here's my business card, contact me if you need anything. But a conclusion is also an opportunity for you to repeat what you've said. And it might not necessarily seem that important to repeat what you've said, but people get distracted and not always listening to every single word coming out of your mouth. And if you want them to get take-home message from what you've said, then you summarise it again in the conclusion. So that's a nice skill to pick up in public speaking to help you sort of round out that impromptu speaking skill. So that's structure. Preparedness, well, that comes with a little bit of practice. Paul, you've obviously said your pitch a few times. So, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But like I mentioned, the more you practice a skill, it doesn't matter whether you're prepared or not, you'll be able to just come up with something. Somebody stops you in the street, or you go to a expo or something like that where you putting your business on display, or somebody works into Canvas co-working and says, oh, hi, nice to meet you, what's your business about? Then you might have a little bit more of a tool to go, well, I met this person via a different method to my ordinary clients, so I'll give them a slightly different pitch because they don't need my business really, they're just interested in what I'm about. So preparedness comes with just experience, I guess, and there will be occasions that you do need to sit down and write a speech, and you do need to sit down and provide some more structure to what you want to say. But that's a skill that can come along. But basically, the more often you say your pitch, the more often you do a warm-up or a table topic, the more that preparedness will come. Gestures, another fantastic one. I can't believe so many of you picked that up. That's really great. Because gestures really can enhance a speech. You can draw your audience in or totally isolate them. And it's something that we're not always conscious of. But that's a skill that you develop through feedback. So this comes back to our evaluations. So your gestures, because you're not necessarily conscious of them, might be picked up by somebody else. And that's when you'll learn to develop that particular skill. I still find myself on occasion clasping my hands, especially if it's a topic that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I don't notice anymore. And it takes my evaluator to come up to me and say, oh, Imogen had a wonderful speech, but I would have liked to see her hands at her sides because she was clutching her hands the whole time. So gestures is something that comes with practice, but it also is something that you need some feedback.
So some basic, simple, basic rules of thumb when it comes to hand gestures. Not behind the back, not clasping.
Yeah. So if you don't know what to do with your hands, just leave them at your side, because that is the most natural open pose that you can have for any audience. If you have a tendency to speak with your hands a little bit like I do, that's fine too. But also, when you get to that point where it becomes more like competitive speaking, as Toastmasters has a competitive speaking side to it, you really want to look at having purpose to your hand gestures. But if you guys are looking for something that might help you in your business, then just being aware of, being closed off potentially to your customer, or disinterested, or I'm wasting my time. So so just be a little bit more conscious. That's really just nervousness. Yeah. Yeah. Like that's, for me, it's absolutely subconscious. I don't know that I'm doing it. And it's, for me, I feel like it's something, oh, I've actually got it. Thinking really hard and pressing my hands together helps me think, like just this little random things.
I didn't know hand gestures were. Were they
Yeah.
on the side or waving around? What was I doing?
I think they might have been waving a little bit, but not too much. But that's the thing, like you don't really notice until somebody brings it to your attention. That's right. And that might be what the tool is that you might use. So if you're not comfortable coming to Toastmasters, yeah, you can video your speeches or your pitch, and even just doing it with your family might help you to improve that. But if they're not necessarily aware of what to look for, you might want to give them some pointers. Please tell me what my hands are doing. Please tell me if I have ums and ahs. Please tell me if my structure works for you. So some quick pointers, but that's a good one. Fillers, well, fillers is a hard one because sometimes you don't even know that you're doing it. Just like your hands. Ums and ahs creep in without you even thinking about it. The one thing that I tell all of the newbies that stand up and do a table topic and every second word is as I say, slow down and think about it. Because I know that works for me. I'm guilty of ums and ahs, especially from an environment where I'm put on the spot. And I know what I'm talking about, but my brain fires at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and that's when I throw in ums and ahs because I'm trying to catch up to my brain's way of thinking. So the easiest way to avoid ums and ahs is to slow down. So slowing down your speech helps slow down your brain thinking and gives you time to catch up on what you're doing, what you're saying. It's a particularly useful tool in table topics because if you get thrown a curveball and you're not too sure what you're going to say, and you stand up here going, well, thanks for that topic. You know, it's not really a great start to the table topic. But if you can come up with something where you've got an introduction and you're saying, thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Well, I think this on this particular subject because of X, Y, Z. And if you can slow down your speaking and slow down your thinking, you'll actually have time to format, yes, exactly, to make stuff up and to format a little bit of structure into that speech. So that's probably the best advice for ums and ahs, as well as just practice. But one thing that I have just thought of is something that makes great speakers. And I'm probably not having a great time of it today because I've had a cold all week. But pace and vocal variety. Now this is not necessarily something that's super important to business, but I think if you can nail these things, then it helps add interest to what you were saying. And vocal variety, people will remember you because you spoke to them in a manner that wasn't just somebody giving a pitch. You know, if you've got a hook for your business, then you want to make an impact with that hook. So leave a little bit of space after you've asked a question, or leave a little bit of space after you've given your wow factor. Can fix a broken door that was split into 1,000,000 pieces. What do you think of that? You know, like let it hang there to sink in for that customer. And slowing down your pace will help with your ums and ahs. But also, people will retain more. You don't speak too quickly at them. They'll remember more of what you have to say. And vocal variety works because if you have an amazing part of your business that you think is a really good selling point, then add some interest to it. Give it some pizzazz and jazz it up. And maybe not quite yell at the person, but give some loudness and volume to your voice, and that will draw them in a little bit. But also know when to speak more quietly, because that will encourage them to listen more closely to you. What's that? What are you saying? It's going to be important because you've slowed right down and you're talking to me like it really matters. So I better listen closely. So pace and vocal variety are also really important. How are we going for time? Oh, we're nearly done. So I was going to go around and do a little bit of an evaluation, but I can see you're all a little bit nervous. So
If you give us a topic that we know nothing about, and so they talk about it in 30 seconds,
Could be a different outcome.
you want to have a crack?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Absolutely, want to have a go.
You want to have a
It's
go?
all
All right.
about.
30 seconds, or you want to go? Let's go for a
And
minute.
how much time do you get for a bit?
No time.
No time.
Like,
You just
we started that into the room.
That'd be a different topic, but yeah.
Well, it's topic changes.
Yeah, no.
Of course, you know. I'll give it a shot.
All right,
Talk
cool.
about that.
All right. I'll have a minute. I don't have my timing lights. A minute, yeah. All right.
Go first again if they want it. Or it's be running.
He's keen. He's keen.
Okay.
All right.
You could go 30 seconds ago, 3 seconds ago.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
thank you. All right. Let's see. Something you know nothing about. Well,
Or you're not prepared. You might know about it, but if you're not prepared, it's too challenging.
all right. Tell me about the best holiday that you've ever had.
Well, coincidentally, you mentioned that best holiday I've ever had was a honeymoon. We went on a honeymoon to United States, which included US, Mexico, Canada. We spent the most we'd ever spent on that holiday ever in our lives. Planning probably never have a holiday as big as that again. We did a total of 4 tours. A lot of those were Kentucky tours, which were a lot of fun, quite exhausting for those who have been on Kentucky tours. So usually party all night long, get up, bus all day long, and party again all the next night. That was hard work. They were more for singles, and we'd only just got married, we're on our honeymoon, so it sort of was, I don't know if it was a bit defeatist in that purpose, but we really did have a really great time on that. It's the best time to do it. We actually missed our plane flight back, and that's probably in contrast, that was probably one of the more worst parts of that holiday because we actually had to drive from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and that was our exciting holiday.
Ding ding. Yeah. Well done.
Down the coast?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a shame. You have to take that drive.
Sure. Well, it was scary to miss a plane flight in another country.
Paul, if you're open, we might just have a little bit of an evaluation and see how you went. What's something that some of you picked up with Paul's mini speech?
You would cover a point and cover a point and cover a point.
That was at the end though. He was pressured.
Yeah, that's right. You saw me put my hand up, and all of a sudden.
I didn't know what that meant. What's that mean? 10 seconds?
Yeah, so it was 30, it was 20.
He didn't stop the conscious hand gestures to a fixed gesture.
Yeah.
Halfway through.
I did it, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I go from this to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know
So,
that.
but that's fine. I mean, that's.
That's fine.
Yeah, we came, oh, I've got to finish and I don't know how to finish, and yeah, and that's what happens. But that skill does develop as the more practice you get. So well done. Thank you, Paul. All right,
Any other
next.
criticism?
No criticism, they were constructive.
That's
Helping.
right. That's right. Topic for you.
Fix it. Fix the problem.
I don't want to be here. All right. Tell us about your worst holiday experience.
Worst holiday experience. Well, I don't know that I can really speak to a worst holiday experience. I mean, I did go on a fishing trip once where it rained a lot, but they say that when you're fishing, it doesn't really matter whether it's raining or not. You're fishing, so the worst day's fishing is just that it rains. So it's not uncommon to hear that kind of statement around that. I did go on a holiday with a pregnant wife and a 14-month-old child, and that was challenging at times, but we had to explore a lot of Europe and Scotland and France, and that was still enjoyable.
miles as well. So
It's difficult. I haven't had what I would declare a bad holiday experience. I don't believe so. No holiday can be bad.
Ding ding, wonderful, well done. See, so what happened there was that he wasn't aware of something that he was totally off topic. He didn't know how to answer a question because he'd never had a bad holiday experience. Well, we should all be so lucky. But what tools do you use to get around that?
Initially, you're fishing, and I think repeated a lot. I started by fishing 6 times. It would be quite.
But he pulled on the fishing idea that, okay, well, if I never had a bad, yes, that's right. If I haven't had a bad experience, what's generally a bad experience in that area? So exactly the same thing if you get a phone call or a put on the spot for another impromptu speech. You don't necessarily have to stick to the topic as long as you can sort of develop some kind of speaking structure. So well done. All right, next. Tell us about your worst nightmare in terms of your business. What's been the worst?
Okay, so worst nightmare in terms of my business come down to probably customer service, dealing with people that are what I call or what is called brittle. So that's where they like to quarrel a lot. Not from the point of getting something sold, but for the fact that they just have a habit of quarreling with people. And these sorts of people, I have an issue with because I'm also that person who wants to be right. So when it comes down to the bottom line, I guess, when it comes down to the bottom line, those sorts of people you don't get into the quarrel with them because they'll take you, drag you down, beat you with experience. So in those sorts of situations, I find walk away, don't think about it again.
Wonderful, thank you. We got to 55, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I can get going.
That's the thing. You could keep going, right? You could keep going, but it's knowing, like, it doesn't matter whether you make it to a minute or 50 seconds. The thing is knowing that you've got a little bit of time left to wrap it up. So you wrapped up well because you knew that the time was coming. But I guess, and you guys are all sort of new to this, but a quick tip is to have a think about, well, while you're using those fillers or while you're thinking, use an example. So I know that that's your worst nightmare, but give us an example of maybe a customer.
Legally, I can't.
Well, you don't have to name it. You just, maybe just a very broad example of something that has happened. And that just giving that experience or that example helps people connect more with you with what you're saying. All right, next. Well, and seeing as we've had worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario in terms of your business? What's the your dream customer?
Right. I got into civil engineering because I knew I wouldn't be behind the desk all day every day. So I love getting out on jobs where I get to go out to site. One of the projects we have on at the moment is with Central Darling Shire Council out in Kenya, Bracken Hill. So I get to go out and meet them once a month, get out on site, a few hours out on the highway, spend some time, guys with the machines on the ground, and then spend a week with them. The guys that are there, great to get along with, small town, doing a lot of arms and things, but we are barbecue once a week. Enjoy that. Getting to travel is my ideal sort of jobs to get.
Ding ding. Well done. So some feedback here. Yes. Fellow public speaker. Well, do you want to pick them out yourself?
Yeah, well, it was.
Yeah. And that's
You're on the spot.
well, and that's the thing. You're just not comfortable with it yet, and that's fine because that's why you develop these sorts of skills to eliminate those fears. You had some really great eye contact, so that's a good place to start. So instead of looking at everything that you did wrong, you guys need to focus on what you have done right and build on that. Because as beginners, that's the most encouraging place to be. Right, next. Ooh, topic.
Something about law.
Yeah, no, nothing about it.
Let me have a think about this.
So it's about the first time you watched the movie that counts.
That can be very specific, but all right, let's go with the movie theme. Tell us about your favourite movie and why.
Favorite movie? I don't really have a favorite movie. I'm probably in my role. I don't really have a lot of spare time to watch movies, so it's a fairly rare occasion these days that I actually get around to seeing something. I'm trying to think of the last movie that I actually watched. In fact, it was on a flight back from the US a couple of days ago, where I watched Captain Marvel while I was physically in some time. It wasn't a bad movie, but long time since I've seen the previous one, so I don't really get a whole lot of time to just sort of set it aside, but I should try and do that a little bit more actually. That movie was kind of a little bit out of what I normally watch. I don't typically watch that kind of cartoon action or comic book action hero type movies. So it's just a little bit of escapism and fairly limited array of variety on Qantas in-flight entertainment at the time.
Ding ding. Well done. It's something that seems like a simple topic for most of us can become a difficult topic for somebody else.
Or when someone doesn't even watch movies.
And that's it. But you might get asked a question that you don't know anything about, or most of the time it's going to be related to your business, so you should have an idea. But if it is a tricky question, just learning how to come up with something that will provide encouragement to your client that they can trust you and come back and get the answer that you might then go and research. What else? We've got any more feedback over here?
Hands on the back.
Yes. You were conscious of it the first time when we came around with the warm-up, but
You don't want to be here, so.
but that particular stance might be just that for somebody else. So,
When I'm comfortable.
yes, that's right. So, well done. Last but not least.
Lucky last.
Well, we've had movies, so let's go with books.
Books?
Yes, favourite book and why?
Okay, books. I'm actually a mad avid reader. I discovered books by mistake. One day I was very stressed about people being late. And I thought, I can't stand this. So I went and got a book and I can read. And then if people are late, I don't care. As long as I don't finish the book. If I finish the book, it's all over Red Road. So, the most important one of the books that I found most interesting was a book written by Isaac Asimov, I, Robot. Bears no resemblance to the movie. I, Robot, he puts out these robotic laws, but then goes through and says how, even with the laws, we as people can short circuit. So there's nothing up there that can be done. Recommend it to anybody who would like a good read. Isaac Asimov, I, Robot.
Wonderful.
How short was it?
53 seconds you made it
7 seconds short. It's not
Like, they wouldn't make it to the green light, but that's a really good effort for a first timer. So,
Well, I actually thought that the timing was running down, so I sort of sped up at the last.
that's right, and that can happen when you see the timing lights. It can reverse itself, the more experienced you become, you see the orange light, you think, I've still got a whole minute before I need to finish my speech. And then all of a sudden the red light's on, you haven't even started a conclusion. So timing is just as important as everything else in Toastmasters. But obviously when you're in a more relaxed environment, timing isn't necessarily as critical. But if you manage to keep those topics, your pitch and all those sorts of things that you talk to customers about to that sort of 1 to 2 minutes time, knowing that you're giving your message across as well as saying what you need to say within a short time frame and not taking up too much of their time, you're going to build a rapport for being somebody who knows a lot but doesn't take up too much time for people.
He was be using his fingers in front.
Yeah, yeah. Is it just somebody else's version of...
But I started and then I realised I was doing that.
Yeah,
Actually tried to use it.
yeah. But some good structure there as well. And I mean, structure is something that's kind of a little bit difficult to learn, but you guys have all managed really well today. I want to congratulate you on taking on the challenge of getting up and in front of everybody. Have we got any questions from our chat people? No?
No,
that's right.
my ears on voice only, so.
Yeah. Any questions? Any more questions?
Is there more to the structure than just the body?
Yeah, yeah. So as you get into the program, so we don't want to bombard everybody when they start with this is the ideal structure for a speech. But there are key things that make an introduction good. So having an impact at the start of your speech. And there are key things that make a conclusion really great. And a lot of that is revisiting what you said at the start. So a very well-rounded speech has a link, key link from the introduction message in the conclusion. So a good speech has a prompt at the start in your introduction. What's going to make these people think? And then through the body of that speech, you get an idea of what relates to that message. And then at the end, in the conclusion, you revisit that message to say, see how these key things in the middle link to that key point that I was trying to make at the start, back at the end. It's all about, I guess, the cycle of bringing what you had at the start and sort of concluding, revisiting your message a little bit and bringing that in at the end. And those are the sorts of skills that Toastmasters can teach you. There are other resources online, but I have brought in a few brochures on Toastmasters if any of you are interested in taking them home with you. And I would encourage you to come to seek out a Toastmasters Club if that's what you want. There is one lunchtime club in Toowoomba if lunch suits you better than evenings. There's a variety of clubs to choose from. Clubs meet on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. So you've got your pick of clubs in Toowoomba. Personally,
So is there like one club per night, is it?
there can be. So some of them alternate weeks. So personally, Highfields Toastmasters Club is 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. Other clubs are the 1st and the 3rd, and maybe the 5th of the month. Some are, I think we only have one Monday night club. There's a couple of Tuesday night clubs and a couple of Wednesday night clubs. We just alternate. But just because there's that many clubs doesn't mean you need to join all of them. You can just pick one.
Just lunchtime.
Pardon? What time?
What day is lunch?
I think it's on a Wednesday actually, but if you just Google Toastmasters Toowoomba, you should most of those clubs in Toowoomba should come up. We all run pretty much the same in terms of how we run our meetings because we all are part of Toastmasters International organisation. But each club runs individually and each club has their own personality. And I'd like to think that Highfields has the best personality, so I might be a little bit biased. But we're very friendly out at Highfields and we always encourage visitors to come along. So if it's something that you think might help you within your business or just might help you develop your confidence in speaking in front of people, whether they be clients or whether they be presentations or judges, maybe then that might be the environment that works for you. But, yeah, if you would like to know more about it, Joy has my email, so just flick me an email or we all have Facebook pages as well, so if you're on Facebook nice there too. So, yeah. Any other questions? I think I've probably taken up all of the ones here, I guess. So should let you get back to work.
Any questions, guys?
Yes.
What sort of numbers do you have?
So some clubs in Toowoomba are struggling a little bit, and some of them are a bit small, ages of 10 or 12. One of the clubs has over 25. Highfields, we've grown in the last 12 months from 8 to 16. We're now sitting at 16, and we're looking to get to that 20-25 figure by next year.
So, what's an example? You don't get to have a champagne to be toasting at the time, do you?
No. It's sort of a little bit of a setup like this.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have a little bit of a U shape. Usually that's really conducive to a Toastmasters meeting because so half the room will be doing evaluations, so you need something to write on. So it's always handy, and basically it's sort of, I want to say informal, but of course we stick to our formal meeting structure, and we have a Toastmaster for the evening, or basically an MC. And they introduce each person who has a segment on the agenda. And we'll have a warm-up, we'll have a word of the day, which can be quite funny because, how we use that word of the day throughout the meeting then can be quite humorous or it can be quite challenging. We also then have a grammarian who is looking for those ums and ahs and fillers and potentially grammatical errors, or even looking for those really great word choices, alliteration and those sorts of things. Then we have table topics, and we'll have a speaker or two, and then we'll have supper, and then we'll get into evaluations. So the speakers will be evaluated, the table topics will be evaluated, and then everybody else who spoke on the agenda will be evaluated. And we have a timekeeper to make sure we all keep to time, because nobody wants to go to a meeting and have it go on for hours just because we're not keeping track of the time. So that's sort of the general structure, but it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, so it depends.
Who sets the agenda? And
so we have a committee, so basically we have a president and a vice president of education, and the vice president of education is responsible for setting the agenda and allocating tasks. So that's all done by the club, and if you're looking at something like that, then don't feel any pressure to know the nitty and gritty like that. The clubs are all very welcoming, and they'll sit you with somebody to help you understand the meeting flow and what might be involved. And you guys have all had your warm-up and table topics now, so you can just say, yep, I'm prepared to take on table topics at the meeting. Any other questions?
and do they choose who's going to do the talking on the different nights?
So we have scheduled speeches, which are usually planned, so people will prepare themselves, and that's usually they will have their own path or their next speech that they're trying to achieve, and that's generally sort of planned a week or several weeks in advance. Yeah.
And what would the fee be usually for a club membership?
So our club Highfields is $75 for half a year, so $150 a year, and that includes all of our room hire and sort of look after the club as well. Most clubs will be around that ballpark. It might be 70, 65, depending on the club. But most of that ends up going to Toastmasters International in the US to be part of the organisation. So if we get a little bit of cream on top to help our club run, then that helps too.
Cool.
But relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Cool. We have an event that we run here once a month. That's called Perfect Your Pitch, or it's actually known now as Open Mic Pitch Night, and that is specifically for people that want to pitch their business. So whether it's a new startup idea or a business, or if they want to develop a pitch for a particular purpose, then we'll do that. It's once a month on a Friday afternoon from 4 o'clock, and we put on a few nibbles and some beer or wine or soft drinks or water or tea, coffee, whatever you want like that, and then you get the opportunity to pitch your new idea or a new business idea, or just improve your value proposition, your unique value proposition, things like that about your brand business. We run that here once a month. And it's a great, I suppose, an introduction to the style, I suppose, that's around Toastmasters. Something that you can get out of that's cool. I don't mind that. I might get Toastmasters now as well. But specifically, the stuff that we did on here on that level would be for preparing a pitch for investors, preparing a pitch for co-founders, just that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.